My name is Philip Young, and I'll be presenting Group 2's project regarding the wireless standards. And we're going to talk about three different, well, actually more than three. We're going to talk about 802.3, 802.11, 802.11, and the various subsets of that standard, as you can see on the slide. First one we're going to talk about is 802.3. And what is 802.3? Well, that's the Ethernet standard, and it was developed in the 70s by the great Xerox Corporation at their Palo Alto facility. And the primary creators of this specification was Robert Metcalf and David Boggs. And Ethernet is a wired network, and the 802.3 designation was specified by the IEEE, and you can see in the diagrams at the bottom left and right of two network diagrams of a Ethernet network. You can notice that they're all connected via a wired medium. And it's most widely used LAN technology, and the connections are not wireless. Many businesses use this particular network standard, and at the bottom left you can see another example of an Ethernet network. All these devices are connected to a Ethernet hub switch through a wired connection. What are the best aspects of 802.3? Well, for me, it's LAN party, and that's basically where you take two computers, you hook them up, and then you play the same game. You can do that with some console games. I know the early console games you can do that with. And it's also a viable security option versus wireless for many businesses, because you can control which devices have access to the network versus a wireless. Is, with a wireless, if you have an open access point, then anybody can just join in and get on the network. But with a wired network, you have to manually connect the cables, and it does have to be connected. And you can see some specifications for Ethernet listed here. And notice that in 1985, Ethernet used the 10-base-2, which is the thin Ethernet, and at this current point in time for 2005 on this chart, Ethernet used the power over Ethernet Plus. You can also see that there's different subsets of Ethernet as listed on the left-hand chart under Standard Supplement. And there's some future plans for Ethernet. It's not going away. It is very popular. There are plans for 25 gigabit all the way up to 400 gigabit, and these are some very fast speeds that are in the works. It's currently up under development, and they are planning on trying to roll those out as quickly as possible. And with the rollout of these specifications, it can definitely change our lives as far as how we interact with different objects on a daily basis. Next one we're going to talk about is a wireless standard, and that's 802.11, and it is a family of protocols of a work group, and it is a very popular medium as well. And it's basically a set of media access control and physical layer specifications for implementing wireless local area network computer. And the communication is in the 2.4, 3.6, 5, and 60 gigahertz frequency bands. And the first subset we're going to talk about is the earliest of the wireless, and that's 802.11a. It operated at the 5.8 gigahertz and 54 bits range. You can see on the slide there's some additional information. One thing I'd like to point out about this specification is that the signals are absorbed more by walls and other solid objects because it has a smaller wavelength. And it's I believe it's this one and 802.11b, but there was problems with the network having interference through microwaves and cordless telephones. So your neighbor would be, perhaps on his cordless phone, and it would interrupt your wireless network because of the problems there with the range. I believe it's the gigahertz ranges. So you would have to go in and change it so it would not be any network interruption. You'd also be microwaving your dinner, and then your wireless network would have interference, and you wouldn't be able to access the network because of this problem. This is some additional information on 802.11a. It's some additional information here, and again we go into details about the ovens and microwaves having interference with this particular specification. And this is just some information regarding the Wi-Fi wireless subsets. It's talking about the amendments to the standard after the standard's been ratified, and you can see the various standards of Wi-Fi here, from Wi-Fi A to A and C. Next one we're going to talk about is 802.11b, and it was a predecessor of 802.11a, ratified in July of 1999. And this was one of the main things about this specification is it was one of the first wireless specifications to be built in many laptop computers. And at this point, wireless was starting to catch on, and Wi-Fi hotspots were starting to become popular. And some good information about 802.11b is that it can transfer data up to 11 megabits per second, and it has frequency range of 2.4 gigahertz. You can see on a chart to the left of the differences between the wireless subsets here. You can see the standard speed, range, and frequency. And for this device that it's talking about, it's talking about the Apple products for wireless devices, as you can see in the chart. Now, 802.11g is the next one we're going to talk about, and that's one of the more widely and most utilized wireless specifications. Operates on the 2.4 gigahertz band, and it is, more people use this one today. Some interesting information about the specification is that it has a throughput of 54 megabits per second, and it borrows from the 802.11a and 802.11b, and as I stated previously, a lot of people use this specification today. And the next one we're going to talk about is 802.11n, and this basically uses multiple antennas to increase data rates. And it supports only up to 4 antennas at around 100 megabits per second each. Produces more speed than 802.11g, but less than the 802.11ac. And you can see the differences in speed here in this chart. We have up to 450 with the 802.11n, and then we have an incredible 1300 with the 802.11ac. And it basically increases your performance, reliability, and predictability. So with 802.11n, it's more reliable, and it supports a broad range of mobility applications without compromising your performance. And frame aggregation is used to decrease time between transmissions. And this is some more information on frame aggregation. So this is interesting information regarding the 802.11n specification. And this is some information regarding 802.11ac, which we are going to discuss next. The amendment was ratified in 2013, and it defines very high throughput VHT below 6 gigahertz. It only uses the 5 gigahertz UNII band and number 2.4 gigahertz band usage. And it has wider channels of 80 gigahertz and 160 megahertz when bonded. And its modulation technique uses the 256 QAM, a very high signal to noise ratio. And this is some additional information here regarding this specification. It is a fast specification. Next one we're going to talk about here is 802.11ad. And this information here does discuss it. It was designed to increase the speed of data throughput to upwards of 7 gigabits per second. To reach these speeds, developers use the 60 gigahertz ISM band to achieve levels of bandwidth needed to reduce the amount of interference and feedback. And this is a diagram of the 802.11ad. And you can see the different aspects here of this particular wireless specification. And you can see a little bit more about the range here. It's interesting regarding this specification. And it uses range in millimeters. It's only used short range to transmit high volume data such as video, pictures, and music. And that would be, your pretty much your home setup. You're streaming Netflix or downloading music or podcasts, playing games, that type of thing. For longer ranges, the 802.11 AC standards used. So it tries to limit that high data throughput to your home versus everywhere else. And this is more about the antenna for the 802.11ad, and it uses an antenna technology to transmit the microwave frequency. And this is just some additional information on how the data is transferred with 802.11ad. And that is a conclusion of Group 2's presentation. You can see our references here.